this only. If you're leaving, baby, let me down slowly. Let me down. Let me down. On both my knees for you. Don't say thank you, oh please. I do what I want when I'm wanting to. So cynical. I'm a bad guy. Duh. I'm a bad guy.
Well, she flew twice, boys. Alright, time for the explanation. SN10's flight had us on a roller coaster of emotions at the edge of our seats. As a SpaceX reporter said,
"Third time's a charm, as the saying goes."
Am I right? So let's get into it. We have a lot to cover, so buckle up. Alright, on March 3rd, 2021, SN10 saw flight. What is SN10, you ask, you uncultured swine? Starship is the vehicle that will eventually take us to Mars and beyond. When fully built, Starship will be 394 feet tall and will have a 100 plus ton payload to LEO, or otherwise known as Low Earth Orbit. What flew today was SN10, or serial number 10. This is a prototype for the upper stage of that rocket. We saw flight of older prototypes like SN8, who was the first to fly. I made videos on its flight, I'll link it up in the top right. SN9, who followed it to the grave, of which I also made a video of, link is up in the cards and in the description. And now we are here with SN10, but before the flight on the 3rd, we had an unintentional static fire earlier on in the day. SpaceX were targeting earlier that day to launch, but SN10's flight computers triggered an abort right at T-0.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, abort.
A later tweet from the man himself, Elon Musk, revealed that there was a slightly conservative high thrust limit, and that they were going to increase the thrust limit and recycle propellant for another flight attempt today. A few minutes after the abort, SpaceX told us that we would have another launch attempt in 2 hours. Finally, after those 2 painful hours had passed, we were on the 10-second countdown once again.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. We have liftoff. SC2.
All 3 Raptor engines fire up to 50% throttle, and SN10 streaks up towards its 10-kilometer apogee goal. As SN10 climbs to apogee, we see some cool new shots from SpaceX, and we see that everything is going nominal. 2 minutes into the flight, we hear the reporter say,
"Ready to transition from 3 engines to 2 engines firing on Starship,"
which means one engine is going to flame out, for SN10's velocity to start slowing down. At 2 minutes 15 seconds, we see a giant fireball come out of the bottom of SN10. This is its engine 1 flaming out to reduce vertical speed. Not even a minute passes and we see another fireball as a second Raptor engine flames out, which leaves the third to carry the entire weight of SN10 up to apogee. At 3 minutes 46 seconds, we hear the reporter say,
"Okay, I'm going to come back up when we hit 10 kilometers right about in 3 seconds. Coming up on T plus 4 minutes, we're at 10 kilometers, we've gone into the hover, we're still being powered by the single Raptor engine."
He explains that we have achieved apogee and we are now hovering at 10 kilometers instead of climbing past it. Next we see a big cloud on the bottom. This is SN10 depressurizing for a bit before the belly flop maneuver. And exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds, we see SN10 flame out its last engine and start to transition into its belly flop stage. As we are streaking across the sky, we see SN10 level, then heartbreakingly tilt downwards too far. She then recovers with her aileron fins and level herself once again. It almost seems like an animation or a video game, but I assure you this is real footage. At 4 minutes and 41 seconds, we hear the reporter chime in and say,
T plus 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Starship has transitioned. It's flipped to the horizontal mode, beginning the descent back to the landing zone.
SN10 is on track to attempt a landing back on the pad at Boca Chica. And at this point, we are traveling about 70 meters per second, or about 210 feet per second. Now we're at 2 kilometers and rapidly falling. So let's pause it here for a bit. Okay. Before SN10's flight, around this point with both SN8 and SN9, we would ignite 2 out of the 3 engines to perform this flip maneuver in order to land vertically. Starship is perfectly capable of landing on 2 engines, so for SN8 and SN9, both engines would relight, and then 1 or 2 of the reignited engines would flame out, or had some issue after the flip maneuver. In a later tweet a few hours after SN9's demise, fellow YouTuber Everyday Astronaut explained how there could have been improvement in SN9's flight. Elon Musk replied to it saying, "It was foolish of us not to start 3 engines and immediately shut down 1, as 2 are needed to land. Therefore, we all assumed that when SN10 flew, we would see the reignition of all 3 engines, and as Elon said, immediately flame out 1, since 2 are needed to land. But when the day came, this is actually what we saw."
Third time's a charm, as the saying goes. We've had a successful soft touchdown on the landing pad that's capping a beautiful test flight of Starship 10. As a reminder, the key point of today's test flight was to gather the data on controlling the vehicle while re-entering, and we were successful in doing so. We had a nominal ascent. We had the maneuver to place Starship horizontal when we reached 10 kilometers, right on time. And then during the subsonic entry, it appears we had good control of the vehicle using the front and aft flaps. And as we approached the landing pad, we successfully lit the 3 Raptor engines to perform that flip maneuver. And then we shut down 2 of them and landed on the single engine as planned. A beautiful soft landing of Starship on the landing pad at Boca Chica. Also, a congratulations to the Starship team in Texas. They've steadily increased the test launch cadence over the course of the program and have delivered some of the most exciting test flights many of us have seen in a long time.
Okay, rewind it. What we actually see is all 3 engines reignite, then flip SN10. Cool. Now after the flip, 2 out of the 3 reignited engines flame out. And somehow, some way, SN10 sticks the landing back on the pad at Boca Chica, as the Starship team rejoices. Although now, after the exhaust fumes clear up a bit, we see fire. This fire is quickly put out by the water towers next to the pad, or so we thought. Next we see SpaceX cut to a close-up on SN10 on the pad. The first thing that caught my eye was that SN10 was sitting on its ass, and not on the landing legs. My best guess is that SN10 came in a little too hot and broke the legs, or the landing legs never deployed. And one might infer that that is what caused the fire at the end after touchdown. And one might also take an educated guess and say that the cause of SN10 coming in a bit too hot was because the flame out of the second engine. At this point, I'm not sure what or who to believe because Elon claimed in his tweet that Starship needs 2 Raptor engines to land, and I just saw SN10 land almost perfectly with 1 Raptor. So how was that for an emotional roller coaster? Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's not over. After the congratulations were given out to the Starship team, SpaceX's live cuts off. But our fellow space content creators, Everyday Astronaut, LabPadre, and NASA Spaceflight, just to name a few, were still live after SpaceX. And boy am I glad they were. No matter what I'm about to show you, this flight was a success. SN10 was successful in its mission to do the impossible. Roll the clips. SN10 eventually joins SN8 and SN9 in the grave. So what happened? Well, for starters, after the relatively tough, not hard, tough landing, one of the methane tanks started leaking. And well, remember that fire we thought the water towers had extinguished? Well, apparently it wasn't fully out, and as we all know, fire and a flammable gas like methane, well, let's just say they don't mix well. And as I always say, SN10 gave us spectacular fireworks. Thanks for watching.
We going and going in sun.